Here we go.
At the beginning of every single chapter, you have a chance to write a chapter title that will grab your reader's attention and help them to anticipate all the great stuff that's going to happen in your chapter. Now, if you're the type of author that doesn't like using chapter titles or just likes having a number or something, there's nothing wrong with that. That's completely okay. But just watch till the end of this video and I'm going to give you some ways to do that better, meaning not lazily because you can't come up with an idea. Ultimately, chapter titles are a way to jazz up your novel, to have a bunch of fun, and we are going to look at books like these to help you come up with 15 strategies that you can use to title your own chapters. So let's get started with number 1, thematic titles.
Thematic titles. We have like a bunch of one-word titles, because our chapter titles are... Where is it? Discovery, Inauguration, Requiem, Loyalty, Humility, Preparation, Evidence, Onslaught, Aftermath, Assembly. And that's the first quarter of the book. Chapter 8 is the attack on Garuda. That's them coming back. And then this is Zaid's death. Which is all Aftermath and Assembly have completely changed because of Zaid's death. But we haven't updated any of it.
Annie Proulx wrote a book called The Shipping News, and it is a very nautically themed book. It's set on the coastline, it's all about fishing and boating, and so it makes sense that she titled her chapters after the name of knots, like the type of knots you would tie a rope in if you're on a boat. So she has chapters titled Lover's Knot, which, as you can guess, of course, characters fall in love. She also has one called Strangle Knot, and yes, metaphorically, the plot does tighten around these characters quite uncomfortably. And she has a chapter called Slippery Hitch, which is a knot that's particularly used in really tough weather, which is exactly what the main character fears in this chapter. So if you do have a strong theme in your book, use that as a way to make all your chapter titles match in a really fun way. Now it is time for the second strategy, chapter titles that build character. Mark Haddon wrote The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime, and in it, it's just numbers for his chapter titles, but he does something very curious. They're not sequential numbers, meaning like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Instead, they are prime numbers only, meaning 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, and all the way up to 233 is the very last chapter. But why does he do this? It's because his main character is autistic, and the character really, really loves prime numbers. So these chapter titles are just a really fun way for us to get to know the character a little bit better, and for us to get a sense of what it's like to live in his world. And plus, it was just a really quirky and fun thing to do with his chapters. The next strategy works really well for a lot of books. It is number 3, use humor. Rick Riordan is the author of The Lightning Thief, and honest to God, I think he has some of the funniest chapter titles ever. For instance, really wacky, weirdo ones like I Become Supreme Lord of the Bathroom. And you read that and you're like, I'm not sure I want to read that chapter. Like, you're a little bit worried. But guess what? You'll read it. Or A God Buys Us Cheeseburgers. I love the mixture of high, like, oh God, with the mixture of very lowbrow, oh, cheeseburgers. Or this one, I accidentally vaporized my pre-algebra teacher. There is a 100% chance that that reader is going to read that chapter. I mean, that chapter title just sells it. So if you can come up with really fun chapter titles like this, it will definitely entice your readers to keep...
Fucking ads! Fuck ads. Always on ads, boys. Yeah, the type of thematic titles I was going for were one word that describes the main event that happens in the chapter. But again, it's all working titles. Like, you know, if I had my way, I'd do those kinds of titles where it was like, let's see, what would chapter 1 be? Chapter 1 would be... How I confirmed all my friends are dead. And then chapter 2 would be those who want to let them in are only invested in espionage. Chapter 3 would be like... It'd either be like, in order to face your mental self, you must first face your physical self, or, one self battle is a portal to infinite knowledge. Just like ridiculously crazy stupid titles.
Reading and not put down your book. And a good fourth strategy for title chaptering is establishing time. So in Sally Rooney's book, Normal People, what she does is she titles every single chapter based on the amount of time that's elapsed since the previous chapter. And so we have chapter titles like 2 months later, 2 days later, 6 weeks later, 5 minutes later. Now on one level, this is just helpful for the reader because it helps them not to be lost, right? They know, oh, how much time has elapsed since that last thing that happened. But on a deeper level,
back, Bookfire.
this is a love story, although kind of like a twisted love story, but still, it's a love story. And
now
I
my
feel
stomach is
like
full.
this
Nice.
woman is counting down the minutes and days and weeks until she sees the guy that she likes. So these chapter titles are another way that we kind of get a glimpse into her psychology. The next strategy is a really fun one. It is number 5, chapter titles as illusions.
Chapter titles as illusions.
Marisha Pessel wrote this fun book called Special Topics in Calamity Physics. And it's sort of structured like this literature course syllabus where every single chapter is another title of a very famous novel. It makes sense because this is a book set in a high school, and so the characters would be reading books like this in their English classes. And she uses each of these famous books as a way to comment on what's happening in the chapter. For example, in 100 Years of Solitude, the main character, Blue, is feeling really lonely and isolated. In the chapter titled A Movable Feast, the whole group eats dinner together. And in the chapter Moby Dick, guess what? Someone drowns. I think this is a great strategy if you want to use it for titling your own chapters, just because alluding to other books just brings this richness and depth to your own novel. It's not just your story, now you're bringing in the power of other books as well, and that creates layers of interpretation. And alluding to other famous novels is also kind of a commentary that helps the reader interpret what's happening in your book. Now this next strategy might be my very favorite one.
If I ever did that, I'd do it to Dragonlance. Dragonlance would be like the #1 pick out of that. Allusions to characters and cities and things like that. But I mean, we're kind of it's a Final Fantasy inspired book. We're already alluding to Final Fantasy with like the job classes, the idea that it kind of reads like
sexy glasses off like a good girl.
Reads more like a video game than it does a book. You know, the monsters and stuff like that. The themes for like the technology versus magic and like consciousness versus reality, stuff like that, kind of really puts it in the, you know, so alluding to other types of books as well, or literature, or like create, you know, IP, whatever it may be. For being in first person, I could do something for the Bartimaeus series. For Dragonlance, I could definitely do something with the dragons. 100%. Like Dragon Fear.
You can put those sweet
something like Dragon Fear. And then like the Sword of Truth, by having like maybe like rules and stuff like that, you know, like Wizard's first rule. Everyone people are stupid and they'll believe what they want.
Out of everything else in this video.
That would be a great thing. Take all of the rules and put them as like all of the chapter titles. People are stupid. They believe things mainly they want them to be true or they fear them to be true. Oh, harm can result from good intentions. The best of intentions lead to the worst of circumstances. Passion rules reason. More people, people are more willing to use their emotions in their thought process and decision making. There's magic and sincere forgiveness, both in forgiveness received and given. Water underneath the bridge is always the best way to build true connections. Mind people's actions over words. Those who say fail, those who do succeed. Mind people's only allow reason to rule you. That kind of goes with the passion. You know, after this they kind of fall off, but deserve victory. So don't be the douchebag. Contradictions cannot exist. So either one thing is flawed, or it's a lie, or it's a misrepresentation, or there's something wrong with it. You know, we could definitely pull those off as chapter titles. But just another idea to add to the stock.
Yeah, it is number 6, create expectations. Michael Faber wrote this fun novel called The Book of Strange New Things. It's basically about missionaries trying to evangelize aliens. And what he does that's really great with this chapter titles is the very last line of every single chapter is the title for that chapter. So he has a chapter title like this one, Looking Back, Almost certainly, that was when it happened. So once readers pick up on this little technique he's using, they read each chapter title looking forward to how can this line be the very last line of the chapter. So for this chapter title, it does a great job building curiosity. When it happened. When what happened? I want to know. Or look at this chapter title. He realized for the first time that she was beautiful too. This sets up a great mystery because we don't know who the he is, we don't know who the she is, but we know that by the end of this chapter, some sort of love story is going to start. It's honestly a great strategy, and I ended up reading the book faster because each new chapter title made me a little bit more eager to see what happened by the end of the chapter. Now, the next strategy we're going to look at is number 7, be clever. Amor Towles wrote this wonderful novel called A Gentleman in Moscow. And inside this book, he makes the very curious decision to start every single chapter title with the letter A. And so you end up with chapter titles such as these: An Anglican Ashore, Arachne's Art, Absinthe. It's kind of a very curious thing that you might not even notice until you're about halfway through the book, but once you do notice it, you find it fun, and you're wondering, it's a little bit of a mystery why the author's doing this. As far as we can figure out, I think it's kind of a tribute to the main characters, who are also both A names, Alexander and Amor. But on a deeper level, this is also a book about new beginnings, and so I feel like the A symbolizes that sense of beginning. This 8th strategy is a lot of fun. It is capture the tone. In Frederick Bachman's novel, A Man Called Uwe, every chapter title is just slightly curmudgeonly, and it's really written in the voice of the character, how he would perceive the events in that chapter. So you have chapter titles like this: A Man Called Uwe and a Cat Annoyance in a Snowdrift. Cat Annoyance. Okay. A Man Who Was Uwe and One Day He Had Enough. You can really hear the character voice in these chapter titles. A Man Called Uwe and a Lakey One Who Can't Open a Window Without Falling Off a Ladder, which is basically referring to himself. So if you do have a character with a really strong voice, why not try titling your chapters with the way that they would describe these events? It gets a lot of personality into your chapter titles and just makes them a lot more fun. And now we come to the next chapter titling strategy, which is number 9, try the interrogative. When you have a chapter title which is a question, it opens up this curiosity loop for the reader because they want to read to the end of the chapter to discover the answer to that question. Let's look at a novel by Claire Sestanovich called Ask Me Again. Every single chapter title in this book is a question, and it's stuff like, what's it worth? Did you see that? Can I tell you something? Now, each one of these questions makes me, as a reader, a little bit curious about what is the thing you want to tell me? Or what did you mean when you say, did you see that? It makes you curious about what that is. It's a great technique, and what makes it better is that she does it very consistently throughout the
Oh, I did something funny to one of my characters. What was that, book? What did you do to your character?
Book, every single chapter title is a question. The 10th thing that you should consider when doing chapter titles is just using the book's philosophy. Carol Shields has a wonderful book called Unless. And what she does is she has chapter titles.
He has a magical mark on his butthole. Nice.
Which are
nice.
just a single word, which are all prepositions, conjunctions, and adverbs. So stuff like therefore, instead, despite, else, hence. But the reason she's doing this is because she has this philosophy of life where she views life as being all these disconnected little elements.
Super powerful, but also causes diarrhea.
And it's
Hell yeah.
through language and through grammar that those elements are connected. Like this part of your life is connected to this part by the word therefore. That's her philosophy that she talks about in this book. So I feel like the chapter titles really reflect her vision of how language ends up connecting and making meaning out of all these different parts of our lives. So if you do have a main philosophy in your novel, look at how that can influence the way that you write every single chapter title. Now for the 11th strategy, which is time.
He also has one up his nostril, like way up near his eye, and it causes a runny nose and itchiness.
Clarity.
Brutal.
So if you are
like fucking allergies. Ugh.
Now for the 11th strategy, which is time clarity.
Time clarity.
So if you are jumping around a lot in time, it
One
can
of my
be
other
very
characters has a vestigial tail. Kind of like, you know, when your tailbone grows just a, you know, a little bit too long, so you get a little bit of a tail.
useful for the reader, just to not be confused by you, is to just put the dates. Just put the dates in the chapter. Orient them right away. And Junot Diaz does this in The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. So he does this with chapter titles like Sentimental Education, 1988 to 1992. Or The Three Heartbreaks of Belicia Cabral, 1955 to 1962. So there's actually two numbers in that last one, not just the dates, but also the three heartbreaks. What that does is it creates anticipation in the reader because we're curious, like, oh, what are those heartbreaks? Really, that's the same reason that I use numbers in so many of my YouTube videos.
And one of the others
About
is 12
twice as many
toes.
people will watch it if I just put a number in the title. It's an easy way to organize information, and it's an easy way to let people look forward to what you're going to deliver to them. Next strategy is number 12, the double triple title. In Haruki Murakami's novel, The Wind-Up Bird Chronicle, amazing book, I love it. Let's look at chapter 8, Credo Kano's Long Story. Also, and this is the same title, An Inquiry into the Nature of Pain. And then the title of chapter 10 is actually three separate titles: Magic Touch, Death in the Bathtub, Messenger with Keepsakes. Now, you might think this
Another one is huge breasts. I'm talking G-cup level. Nice.
is rare, but this is actually a technique used all the time. When I was looking through the books on the bookshelf back there, I came across The Known World by Edward P. Jones, who
And
does this
Tiny
exact
Body.
same thing. Most chapters in his book have at least 3 titles to them. I mean, the logic is if one title is good, maybe 3 is even better. And I think it's because the chapters are larger and they want the chapter titles to reflect the multiple things that are happening inside that chapter. And I say, hey, that's cool. That gives the reader more to look forward to with chapter titles like that. And now we're already to
That's
the
a good
13th
strategy for,
Number 13, use repetition. In The Wizard of the Crow by Noguchi wa Thiongo, every single chapter
And she has a phoenix mark on them that takes up most of her chest and breast. Nice.
title has the same word in it. It's the word daemon. So the chapters are power daemons, queuing daemons, female daemons, male daemons. And what this does is it just gives this unity across the entire book. Like the entire book is holding together from this one topic, from this one word. If you have a particular object or person who is very consistent
Tree.
throughout your entire novel, then consider making them the focus of your chapters.
Adventurer.
Have every single chapter title revolve
Every
around that
single
person or thing.
chapter
We only
title
have
has
2 more chapter
adventurer in
title
it.
strategies left, but they are some of the best ones. Number 14, playfully retro. So this is a truly old school style of chaptering your titles. I'm talking like 18th century novel style. These are called synoptic chapter headings, and it's basically a summary of what happens inside your chapter. Now you might think, oh, I don't want to give it away, but remember, anticipation is just as powerful a technique as mystery is. And sometimes you want to tell.
I don't know if I
tease
should get
the reader with
chocolate or
something that's
chips
going
for
to
my
happen because they're going to look forward
day.
to that happening. They're not going to be like, oh, now I
Ooh,
don't want to read
Callie.
the chapter. They're going to be excited
That's
to
a hard
see
one.
how it's going to happen. Henry Fielding wrote
I'd
a
say
novel
chips.
called The History of Tom Jones, and he has chapter titles
All dressed
like these,
ruffles.
in which Mr. Western
Or Miss
visits
Vicky
Mr.
Salt and Vinegar.
Allworthy. A very long chapter containing a very great incident. I love how forthright it is, and yet he gives away nothing. You know nothing, but you're anticipating. Containing such a grave matter that the reader cannot laugh once throughout the whole chapter, unless, peradventure, he should laugh at the author. So these chapter titles are creating a lot of anticipation in the reader, and I think that's a great strategy, but it's not just for 18th century novels. Modern novelists do this too. Look at Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. He has chapter titles like An Overture to Encountering the Hero, and then Encountering the Hero. So if you want to pull off a chapter title like this, give a little bit away, but then withhold something too. You're not telling them everything, you're just whetting their appetite. And the very last chapter title strategy is number 15, Reduce Confusion. Now, say that you watch this whole video and you're like, John, thanks for all the ideas, but you know what? I don't feel like any of those chapter title strategies. I want my chapter titles to be very like normal and basic, like numbers or nothing. That is completely cool. It's completely fine. And you know what? It might be the best choice for your book. So let's look at George R. R. Martin in Game of Thrones. How does he title his chapters? Basically, it's just a chapter name to show the reader right away, oh, this is who the chapter's about. So you have Arya 1, Sansa 1, Tyrion 1, Bran 1, Arya 2. So it's nothing fancy, but you know what this chapter titling does? It just reduces confusion for the reader. We can figure out immediately, oh, this chapter is about this character. And when you have as many characters as George R. R. Martin has, sometimes you need that sort of clarity in a chapter title. Folks, I hope that gave you lots of ideas for clever ways that you can title your chapters.
True. Thank you so much, good sir. Alright, guys. Go give Bookfox there a view, a like, a subscribe, maybe a comment. If you guys got anything out of this,